here with Most Worshipful Brother William Sardone, past Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of New York. How's it going?
It is going excellent. Always a pleasure to be here and speak with you and everyone else.
So I do my best, and I recommend all Masons do this, right? To try to follow other Masons on social media, to try to keep up with what's happening in different jurisdictions, if for no other reason than to get ideas of things you can bring to your jurisdiction. And you and I are connected on LinkedIn, where I saw, as well as I think other social media sites, but I came across a flyer for an event you're holding, or at least that it looks like you're holding it, you're heavily involved in, Masonic Model Railroading, July 8th, 2023, 10 a.m. at Masonic Care in New Rochelle. And that caught my eye because I know a lot of Masons who love trains. An old, I guess kind of a mentor of mine, passed away now, Brother Art Taylor, loved trains and model railroads in particular. He had a massive one in his basement. But I've never heard of like a lodge being involved or Masons being involved in model railroading. So before we go any further, tell us a bit about what's happening July 8th, and kind of where the genesis for Masons and model railroading came from.
One of the things that I have found is I've been very fortunate I was a DeMolay boy from the time I could join until I was 21, then became a Mason. And I've been a Mason now, believe it or not, for over 50 years. And on and off over my career, because I was very busy with the in the United States Army as a Master Sergeant. And then I worked for AT&T. So I didn't have a lot of time to go to lodge. Then as I retired from some of these things, I went more and more to lodge. And I found that it was great being with everybody on the second and fourth Tuesdays. And I kind of went to some other lodges, to some of their events in between. And I said, maybe we should be doing more. As time went on, I was fortunate enough to become a Grand Master of DeMolay for the entire world in 2017. And if there's anything that's good, it's hanging around with youth, because they're the ones that have no fear. They don't know why you can't rent the Empire State Building. They don't know why you can't rent the Intrepid and have it for a day, but they have an idea. So that kind of thinking made me think other ways of doing things. So I wanted to come up with something as Grand Master to bring more of attention to the individuals who are members of lodges to come out to do other things with their friends and families. Priority one, ground zero for me as Grand Master, is bringing in quality members. And it isn't by handing out petitions at subway stations or in parking lots. It's by presenting ourselves with something that people want to be involved in. And then we decipher whether that individual is good enough or not, that meets the criteria that we're looking for to be a Mason. So I needed a way that quality Masons would bring their friends. Quality Masons don't want to bring their friends all the time to lodge meetings, which they can't come into, or some of the other things that we have. And I hate to say this, some of them are boring. So I remember that during the holiday times in the malls, there's model trains set up a lot of times in these malls. And children are standing there watching them. And the adults are pushing past the children to look over the top of the plexiglass to look at the trains, because it's bringing back some memories of when some of us were younger and it set up the trains around the Christmas trees, and we had those kind of things. Today's children, and today's youth, I should say, don't want to play with these things that much because they're too busy with smartphones. The smartphone is the way to go for everything. So I said, let me see if I can start a model railroading opportunity here, because every time I took a train or something to some children or the youth, they held on to it. They would play with the wheels on the truck of the train, and the tactile sense really intrigued them. But they went back to the video games. So I decided to put the word out to the fraternity that I am collecting model trains. I'm not buying anything, I'm collecting them. And if anybody has any of them that they would like to donate, would be more than happy to pick them up and repurpose them. And everybody came back to me and said, I'm saving my trains for my grandchildren. And I said, no problem. I'm not here to take your legacy. And they'd come back to me about a month and a half later and say the grandchildren don't want them because it isn't Mario Brothers, and it isn't Pokemon, or it isn't some kind of game that they can play on their Xbox. So they wind up giving them to me. And then as time went on, it gathered more and more and more. I collected more and more trains. And I collected everything from Z gauge, which is so tiny that you need a microscope almost, or a magnifying glass to work on them. But if you don't have space, they're good. All the way up to G, which is they're about this big. It looks like I've just caught a fish that I'm trying to figure out how big it is. But I got a lot of HO sets, O gauge, and we are now looking to launch. Here's 2 ways that I got these sets, and I'm going to send you pictures after this that you can incorporate it in that show how we advertise to get some of these things. I did a dedication of a lodge. We have a lot of lodges here that are 200 years old and more. I did a dedication of a lodge that was about 200 years old a year and a half ago in July. And as Grand Master, I talk about the different things we have. We started beehives with a beekeeping club where we have honey, horticulture center, and model trains if anybody has any. Oh, okay, fine. 2 weeks later, I get a call from a man 2 towns away from where I was who said, I understand you're collecting model trains. I said, I am. He says, I have a layout in my basement. He says, I'm moving my office back to my basement. I need the space. You can have the entire layout. So, big shot Bill Sardone says, no problem. We'll come and I'll come and pick it up. Well, it was like building a boat in a basement. This guy built. It took up his entire basement. It took 2 of the lodge members and myself 2 days to take it apart and climb up these tiny stairs. You had to be a mountain goat to get up these stairs. I got a pickup truck. I rented a trailer, and we took the entire operation back to our Masonic Center in New Rochelle. We temporarily set it up on centipedes, which is these little accordion type of supports, and they're there, and it's sitting there. That's an HO layout, and I'll send you a picture of that. Then a month and a half ago, I get a call from a plumber who's a Mason, who says, I'm doing a job in Purchase, New York, which is probably about 20 miles north of New Rochelle. And I'm taking an oil tank out of the ground, and I'm putting a new tank in the man's basement. And in having an oil tank in the ground today is not the thing to have anymore because of ecology and whatever. And he's taking it out of the ground because it doesn't leak, but he wants it out now before anything happens. But there's no room in the basement because there's a train layout there, and he has to get rid of the train layout. He says, I know a guy that might be able to take that train layout. Bill Sardone. So I rent a U-Haul. I drive up to this guy's house. Another Mason, Scott Pete, joined me. We took the layout apart. We took it up from the basement again, and we reset up the entire O gauge layout. And with it came probably about 20 or 30 Lionel trains. And with the HO set, I probably got another 20 or 30 HO trains came with it as well. So now what I did is I have these things set up. People have been donating things over the years. When this caught on, and here's something here I want to show you. This is a train that somebody gave and made. Let's see if we can get that lined up here. And I can't hear you.
Lift it up a little bit. I can't quite see it. There we go. But bring it back a bit so it's not so close to the camera. A little bit back further. There we go. All right.
It's
You
got
can kind of
different
see it
words
there.
inscribed on it for leadership and stuff like that. This is an O gauge set, and they had this thing specially made up from Lionel. Lionel doesn't exist the way we used to know it when we were kids, but somebody bought it, and they made up all of these different cars because they said this is a great opportunity for doing something a little bit different. And then they made up another car because they knew I retired from the United States Army, and they made up a patriotic car with, thanking me for my service and things of that nature. And these are things that have come along over the time. So here's my view. My view is that we have tens of thousands of Masons in New York, tens of thousands of Masons. Not everybody loves to go to Masonic meetings. I know that sounds like sacrilege from a Grand Master, but not everybody likes to go to meetings. And today's Mason, especially in the New York City area, they commute an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to work. They then have to hang around afterwards, just go to lodge meeting at 7:30. Okay, so we have restaurants in the area. The meeting's over with maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. They love to hang around and talk a little bit, but they got to get the train, the bus, or whatever to get back home, which is 2.5 hours. So some of them say, you know what? I don't have my wife's is going to a PTA meeting. I got to watch the children. My partner's not going to be available to pick me up at the train. I'll skip the meeting. So a lot of them wind up not coming to meetings, but they're still Masons. So I said, what I need to do is I need to find things for them to do that are not always on the second or fourth Tuesday. And some of them could be the turkey giveaway at Thanksgiving. And I see Masons who come to that who can't get to lodge meetings because they work at night, but they'll come during the day and they'll work like crazy to help us out. They could be coming out for the Toys for Tots, where we're collecting clothing or toys for children that we could do on multiple Saturdays. And then we would bring them into different homeless shelters. We used to bring them to the hospitals for the children, but now with the COVID stuff and all of that, we just leave them at the door, and they don't even want them anymore because they're not sanitized. So we do other things. But I wanted to do something that picks off those individuals who cannot come to lodge. So what's happening is I must have about 1,000 individuals in New York that have stepped up and said, hey, this is a great idea. This idea is terrific. Now, I'm not going to get 1,000 people in New Rochelle because New York State is 15 hours long driving from one end to the other. So I'm looking to do pockets of this around the state. And the first pocket that we're going to start is in New Rochelle. We started a small pocket in Utica, New York at our Masonic home, at our Masonic care community. We have a small layout there that one of the residents brought with him when he came up there. And he plays with it. He comes out with it. The man has since passed away and left all of his trains to us. So we have a small layout there. But this is going to be our first real launch where people are coming. Now, how many people are coming? I don't know. I didn't put a hard press on everybody and said, I need you there. I want you there. You have to be there. I opened it up to everybody. And what I'm finding is that there's people coming with their wives, partners, children. They're coming there with vans from different parts of the state. And the idea is that this needs to be wired up. This is here sitting there. And I'm not putting this together where people are going to come in and turn the switch and then watch all the trains go around. No, this is going to be where they come in, they get together, they put the track. Somebody's going to know how to put track down. Somebody's going to know how to do the wiring. Somebody's going to know how to make the paper mache mountains. Someone's going to know how to paint the little houses. Someone's going to know how to make the little bridges. And the idea is to start this club where people come in and they start a rotation where they come in and they have a good time building this layout. This layout will be for them and them only. This is not a Bill Sardone event where it only works if I'm there. We're going to get people who are going to step up, not take charge, but be the ones to coordinate and put this together. And this is our launch. I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to catch on. Now, this happened during my term when we started this. And this didn't happen overnight. This took about a year or so for me to get this stuff to ground, to get these trains. And by the way, I got a lot of trains. I not only got trains, I got people who gave me their HO sets that they never even opened when they were given to them for whatever reason. I got little houses. I got little stanchions. I got signs, all these different things that people had in their basements, attics. Some people are moving. Some people sadly passed away. They didn't know what their children didn't know what to do with it. They gave it to us. We've collected all of these things. And now I'm putting them out there for them to be deployed here for the next generation of individuals to make good use out of. And I'm finding that this is catching on. Now, out of the tens of thousands, are all tens of thousands of Masons going to be into this? No. But some of them will, and that's fine by me. If I can get pockets of different things going on like this that attract different individuals to do things, then we keep Masons involved. The good thing about it is our new Grandmaster Kessler, likes this program and asked me to continue it. And a lot of Grandmasters that when you're done, let's jettison those programs and let's start new. Grandmaster Kessler said, let's keep this one going because it has some value to keep people involved. So I'm very pleased with that. And that's what we have going on July 8th is going to be our first launch. We will take pictures. We might even take some videos, and then we'll take it on from there. But I have no doubt that this will continue to be a success.
Where do you plan to go after New Rochelle? Are there been any thoughts about the next model train event?
The funny part about it is the way to have success.
Or model railroad, I should say.
Well, you can call it whatever you want. You know, by the way, I'm not opposed to changing the name of this thing. It's up to the members of what they want to do. That's fine. You know, I've come up with some corny things, you know, like stay on track with me or train your eyes on what we're doing. And the schedule is that they're leaving on track 7123 at 10 o'clock. Well, 71 West 23rd Street is the address of our Grand Lodge. But here's what I'm doing. Once this thing takes off, once this thing starts being publicized, once we start putting some social media out, and by the way, regarding social media is the very thing that destroys a lot of good things. I use social media to get back at that and talk about the good things that we do. I mean, we have people who go on social media, get up in the morning and say, I can't believe what's happening today. And they don't say what it is, but they want the attention. I want the attention for the good things that we do. So that's why I put a lot of good things out. I'm running a cigar and whiskey night in July, which is going to support our dyslexia center for children that we started in Manhattan. And those are the things that are gathering. But here's what's going to happen. Regarding the trains, I'm going to put this stuff out. I'm going to get pictures of what we've done this coming Saturday. And then I'm going to put it out to the rest of the Masonic fraternity in New York and say, if you have space in your Masonic buildings and you would like to start this, I have the trains that I can give to you so that you can start this in your locations. And it's going to be up to some of these other locations to come to me and say, you know what, we have this space here because we just cleaned out an area. You know, there's a lot of Masonic temples that had stores that they rented to or space that they rented to, and now the renters are gone and they don't have that income anymore and they'd like to use the space for other things. That's an opportunity that we can do this for. And, you know, we have one in Staten Island alone that just had a space that they moved out, and they said they're not going to rent it to anybody else. They're going to reuse that space for the Masonic things. There's another opportunity to put more trains. So I'm not going to force this on anybody. People are going to wind up coming to us and say, you know what? We have an opportunity here. Let's see what we can do. So where it goes next is up to the members of the fraternity in New York.
Now, on your flyer, you mentioned it's open to members, to friends, and to family. Why did you decide to open it up to basic members of the public, to people outside of Freemasonry, and to get them involved, whether it be a Mason's family or friends or acquaintances? Why did you decide to expand it outside of Freemasonry or Freemasons?
Well, if anybody comes that is not involved with masonry, which I kind of doubt they're going to come. And by the way, we have security there on the campus and everything, so I'm not worried about people coming in without being watched and checked and all that. But uh, too many times people have misconceptions about what masonry is about. And my idea here is that if you're going to come, you're going to see another side of masonry. Typically, and I would say 99% of the time, anybody that's coming that's not associated with masonry is coming with someone who is associated with masonry. And, you know, one of the things I've said to the members is if you're waiting for your friend and neighbor to join masonry, forget it. It's not happening. If they haven't figured out by now that you're coming home at midnight in a tuxedo like 2 times a month and you're at something and they haven't asked you why and they haven't asked you to join, they're not going to join because they don't know what you're doing there. But if they come to an event like this and they see just people gathering around, talking, maybe bringing coffee, maybe we'll order pizza, and they sit and talk, then they might have an interest to become Masons. Now, regarding family, you know as well as I do, if your family's happy with what you're doing and they can be a part of it, things work better. And if you can get your children involved, things work better. You know, I've been involved with a DMLA organization since I was 14 years old. And it's important to engage youth in what we do for the better part of society and for the things that we have. And hanging around Masons is not a bad thing because our values and our core of what we stand for are the basics of a good society. So getting your family involved is important for me. You know, we have Masons who put a lot of time in, and a lot of that time is not always with their family because they're running Masonic events. You can bring your family to some things. It's a plus as far as I'm concerned.
And you know, more in general, we talked about this before going online or before hitting record. From your experience, whether you want to discuss it from the experience of being a master, a Mason, up to a grandmaster, the importance of involving brothers, involving the craft in more than meetings, but social events, hobbies, model railroads in this case, the value of either a lodge doing that or up to a grand lodge supporting those things. Where do you think and from where is the value derived? Why is that important, in your opinion, to do those things?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of ways of looking at it. You know, when I became a Mason, and when my let's go another direction. Our grandfathers got all dressed up in tuxedos, and they got all together, and they went off to lodge. And on the way out the door, little Joey says to them, "Where you going, Daddy?" "Well, I'm going to the lodge." "Oh, who's going to be there?" "Well, Mr. Jones, who owns the grocery store, Mr. Smith, who owns the gas station, and so on and so forth." "Oh, good. What are you going to do there?" "Can't tell you. Can't tell you. It's a secret." "Oh, all right." So grandpa or the father goes off to lodge. Comes back home late. Next morning, little Joey says, "Hey, how did it go last night, Daddy, at the lodge?" "It was good." "What'd you do there?" "Can't tell you." So we lost a generation a bit of individuals because little Joey said, "Oh, I'm not going to join this for you. He never tells me what's going on." Some joined, a lot of them didn't. Now they have had sons and their grandchildren, those grandchildren now are doing ancestry.com. They're doing researching their family, and some of them are finding out that they have Masonic lineage. And unless they know that we're there, they may never join. And I put an ad out that says maybe you would like to follow in your grandfather's footsteps because they're being passed down their Masonic rings and this, that, and the other thing. We have a lot of grandchildren that are engaging in Masonry, and they're good Masons too. They're really enjoying themselves and they're doing well. But it's important for me to get families involved because even in the times of when our grandfathers were in lodge, they had covered dish dinner events. Eastern Star was very big and supported everything. And families were involved just in a different way. Today, a lot of families, both people work, they live far away from the lodge. They can't always get to the lodge for things. So if I can get an occasion here and there where we do something where the families can come together, it's important for me. Now, I realize a lodge meeting, everybody says, well, I remember the lodge when we had 60 people who came to the lodge. Well, that's great. I'm not looking for 60 people to come to the lodge. I'm looking for people to come to the lodge, to run the lodge, for the business, the bylaws, the constitution, and make sure everything is done well, plan for events. And I'm also looking for people who can do those events outside the lodge as well and make them work. And then what we have is we have a good Masonic organization that is well-rounded and doing things and helping to be charitable. And charity is really the basis of everything we do.
The charitable aspect is an important part of it. What you bring up in terms of not just attendance at lodge, right? Numbers are important, but trying to make sure that whether it's 60 people or whether it's 10 people, right, that you create meaningful experiences for the lodge or for the membership within that lodge, right? And it sounds like one of the things you're saying, right, is meaningful lodge experiences don't have to happen within the lodge. They can happen in a model railroading event, right?
It can happen.
New Rochelle.
I think we need diversity in what we offer and what we have. I restarted the American Lodge of Research, and people they come and have papers that they present about Masonry and history and opinions. And there's about 2 hours of discussion on that. There's a segment of Masons who go to that are not going to come to the model railroading. There's a class that we have on beekeeping, because we're now teaching people how to be not only just beekeepers, but how to process the honey and how to take care of the honey and what the things have to be done. Those individuals are not going to go to the American Lodge of Research to hear a paper. They may not come to the model railroading, but they'll go to that. The idea is that I'm trying to get enough things of diversity that attract individuals to be not only Masons in a meeting, but outside the meeting as well, to participate. And you know what? DMLA is another one. We have lots of Masons that don't have the time to go to a lodge meeting, but do have the time on a Saturday afternoon to be a DMLA advisor, to be with the children and to participate with them on an afternoon on a Saturday. And in New York, we have about, well above 60 some odd % of the young men wind up joining Masonry at some point. And why? Because they have Masonic mentors that they have seen over the years. So there's a lot of things, diversity that I tried to set up to give individual Masons things to participate in instead of going to the meeting itself and deciding what goes on for the next chicken dinner or whatever they're having.
Who's responsible for that, do you think, in terms of creating or finding interesting or those diverse experiences that brothers of different interests or different commitments or different cable toes or however you want to put it will find interesting?
You know what? I don't know who's responsible for it. All I know is that I don't like to see status quo. I like to see us step up. I like to see us try something new. There's a saying in marketing that a funny thing happens if you don't try. Nothing. And I've tried many different things. And, as much as I like to sit here and say every one of them worked, no, not every one of them worked. But, during the pandemic, by the way, I made like 52 videos during my time as Grandmaster. I got dressed up in a turkey outfit for Thanksgiving, and I came to a cornfield and I said I had a message for Masonry. I got dressed up as a bee a regular bee outfit, and I did a video talking about the bees and how important it is. And if you want to know about bees, you do like I do. I joined a colony, so Masons joined a lodge. I'm a different type of guy. I'm a salesy type of guy, and I like to sell the good product that we have, which is Masonry. So is it up to me? No. But there are members out there that do have these ideas, and they do come to me with these ideas, and we take it and we try and go with it. Some are fishing trips. Some are seasonal events. Some are skeet shooting, but a lot of those are kind of seasonal. I'm trying to think of things that can be used all year round, so that this way here, rain or shine, we can do these.
But when I, talk about who's responsible for finding those diverse experiences, one thing I will say to new members entered apprentices is an entered apprentice, every Mason, whether he's a day in lodge or 20 years in lodge or 50 years in lodge or a Grand Master, right? Every Mason is responsible for for the well-being of his lodge, or creating an enjoyable experience in lodge. So if you're, say, if you're a Mason who is not finding the lodge experience fulfilling, or not adequately diverse or interesting, or pick your term, is it, let's say, the fault of the people who maybe brought him in, or his sponsors, for not talking to him well enough about what to expect? Is it on that Mason to speak up and say, we want to try, I'm not finding this as interesting or fulfilling, and here's what I want to try to make it a more enjoyable experience? Is it up to the lodge to recognize what's going on, or the Grand Lodge? Because I know, for example, a lot of newer Masons may feel as though, because I'm brand new, if I'm not enjoying the experience, I'm not going to say anything. I'm too new. I'm just not going to come back. Or older Masons may feel like, this is how we've always done it the last 20 years. So this is how we want to keep going the next 20 years, right? So I guess in some ways, the answer might be everybody. But from your perspective, if a lodge experience isn't meeting a brother's needs, or he doesn't find it fulfilling, who is responsible for trying to change or diversify that experience?
Well, the master of the lodge is the master of the lodge. And, he, by virtue of your acceptance to be a Mason, you understand that he's the master of the lodge. And, one of the things we are we're made up of is human nature. And every individual is different. Every master is different. Every district deputy grand master is different. Every grand master is different. We all come from backgrounds that are diverse. My background happens to be a diverse career, where I was in the United States Army for over 30 years and ran, I was in the infantry, taking care of classified communications training with the infantry, as well as being in the infantry. I retired from AT&T with a long career with them as well. And basically in sales, if you haven't figured that out by now, that I was a sales guy there. So we all come to the table with different types of backgrounds. And a lot of times we take those backgrounds and we implant them on our organization, saying, well, it worked for me, it'll work for them. And what I found is that there isn't one size shoe doesn't fit all. So I throw out a lot of different ideas and see who gravitates to what. And 9 out of 10 times, people will gravitate to something, but it will take the Grand Master or the Master to roll up his sleeves and get involved and engaged in what the members like to do. Whether he likes it or not, if the members like it, he needs to be involved in that, and he needs to support it. And then eventually he can step away and somebody will step up in that little group and take charge of it. It could be something as simple as planning a going to a theater or a Broadway show that's traveling around twice a year and organizing a dinner and going to that. It could be something as simple as the annual golf tournament. Everybody's got golf tournaments. So sometimes I think we have too many golf tournaments because you can only go to just so many of them. But the diversity of what we put together is what attracts people. And let me tell you something. When I did that telethon, I had grandmasters from that were questioning me whether it was going to work or not. And they wanted me to give them an update. And I told them, well, I gave them all their business cards back. I said, if you want to know what the update is of the telethon that I'm doing, watch it. Turns out it was a success. Why? Because it was something different. We did something that no other Grand Lodge as an individual has done before. And what we did is we went before the world and told the world what we were about. And you can't dispute the fact that we take care of elderly. We have a Masonic Medical Research Institute that's looking for cures for various things, from trying to determine autism to try and understand heart issues. That is one factor of it. We have a Masonic care community, take care of the elderly. We have a child care system up there that takes care of children. We started a horticultural center where we now have classes on how to teach people how to grow things and the different types of year when to grow things and physically grow things as well. We have youth organizations, DMLA, Rainbow, and in New York, we have another girls organization called Triangle. That was what we told everybody. And that is what's out there. And when I did that telethon, we had more engagement in some of these different things because a lot of people, you know, you can send out magazines, brochures, emails, social media, but sometimes people have to see it in order to understand what's really there. It's like a visual attention.
I think, 100% the visual aspect, that's model railroads, right? Like, written is great, talking about stuff is great, but having something that people can see, and even in the case of model railroads, right, is tactile. They can go and see them and touch the trains, or like the trains you showed earlier today, right? Those are really important parts of Freemasonry, just getting out there. And like you said with the telethon, right? You never know unless you try. Not everything you try is going to be a success, but some will. So if you try 20 things, right, 10 of them are successful. That's better than trying 10 things, only 5 of them are successful. So you might as well try a lot and see what sticks, I think is a key thing. And it sounds like, as we wrap this up, your model railroad club has been successful, certainly in terms of the trains you managed to pick up, the gifts you've been given as trains, and as well, I know you said you don't have any hard numbers, but I'm seeing it pop up on my socials. So your event in New Rochelle sounds like it's going to be successful. So I think, yeah, you never know unless you try, and why not give it a shot?
I'm not a believer that I need 100 people at an event to make it a success. I'm a believer that if I get 2, 3, 5 people, I'm good. I'm good. Those are 2 or 3 or 5 people that may not be involved in other things. If those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people are having a good time, that is like osmosis. Negativity spreads, so does positivity. And what I do is I concentrate on the positivity. You can't help the negative things that go on. There are some people that are never happy with anything. They are on social media all the time. I always said I could bring Mother Teresa back to life and someone would complain that she has wrinkles. So not everybody will find the good in anything you do. They will always find something wrong. And why? I don't know why. I am not a glass half empty, half full person. I think the glass is always refillable and we can always continue to do more. We have tremendous opportunity in this fraternity. The diversity of members that we have, from doctors, lawyers, plumbers, electricians, horticultural people, their spouses, their partners that have connections with things, teachers. We have a tremendous diversity of talent in this fraternity that we can harness to do things. And they can be different pockets of people who want to do things together. The American Lodge of Research, 2 hours of listening to somebody read a paper, you know what? Some people enjoy that, some people don't. But I know that when we have our meetings, people are totally engaged in that. And now we started doing papers live. And now we have started taking those papers that have been given in the lodge and doing them on Zoom, because the members of the American Lodge of Research, probably half of them are out of the country, out of state, but they've joined it. But they never get to see it because they don't come to New York. So now we started to do some Zoom American Lodge of Research papers as well. So we need to think out of the box, but not out of bounds when it comes to doing different things. And I also don't put a lot of people in charge of things. Now, people saying, do you have a committee doing this stuff? Well, I'm not a believer in a lot of committees. You know, there's another saying in marketing that a camel is really a horse designed by a committee. I don't mind a committee to get
I heard that in
ideas.
politics.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've heard it in sales too. But the thing is a committee is good to maybe get some ideas, and a committee is maybe good to give assignments to get things done, but not a committee to run everything. When it came to my membership problem, I put one person in charge of membership, one individual. He's a retired colonel from the Army, retired executive of Xerox. That one individual worked 8 to 9 hours a day on our membership and how we turned it around and how we did things. And what we did is we used social media to advertise what Masonry is about. And what we did is we told people, you want to be charitable? You want to give food away to people you'll never see again, that you don't know who they are? Talk to us. We may have a place for you. And as a result of that, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of submissions that we managed to cull down to those that are good. And then what we did is we didn't introduce them to a lodge as an individual. We introduced them to lodges in groups of 2 and 3 and 4. So this way here, when they went to the lodge, they went in as a group and they became a group together, and they weren't sitting on the side by themselves. And we do have some people that still say, this is not the way we did it before. Yeah, I'm not a young guy. I've been around long enough and I could fit that category, but I know what hasn't worked, and we continually do it. We do surveys. We have a survey, and then we do another survey to see if that survey was good. And then we do another survey to see if those two others, we're waiting for the survey that says we don't have to do anything, everything's okay. That survey doesn't exist. We have to take it upon ourselves to take the good portion of these surveys, which are all come back to say that Masonry has exactly what it needs. We are just poor marketers, and we need to market ourselves better. I put up billboards around the state. We did the social media. We did the Zooms. We did the telethons, and we gradually started getting back into the mainstream of letting people know what we're about.
Well, I know that you've done great work in New York. I see a lot of it popping up on my socials. And as somebody who's got it's not my lodge, but it's a lodge in my district that I visit a lot, Great Western Lodge, that is named after a train rail line. I had to take a few moments to reach out about the Masonic Railroad or Masonic Model Railroad, is I think that's just one example of something that every jurisdiction, every lodge, every Mason can consider bringing to his own area. And if, and hopefully, if you're not interested in trains, maybe you're interested in something else that you can bring there, right? Hopefully this gives some brothers out there some ideas of things that they can bring to their lodge to encourage and diversify that experience and to encourage engagement amongst Masons. So I think it's awesome. So I do appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Here we go.
You got your conductor hat there.
Let me see if I can get my hat on straight here, just to let you know how that I am engaged in this. By the way, I have no problem if that lodge wants to get in touch with me When you do this, send my email out to everybody. I have no problem. I'm not an expert at anything. I'm an expert at listening. And leaders must listen.
That's a very good skill, and the ability to listen is very important. So thank you for your time. I wish you best of luck on your conducting
I'm going to send
journey,
you.
and
I'm going to send you some pictures of just about 4 or 5 pictures of 4 or 5. That looks like 10, but 4 or 5 pictures of some of the things we've done here, and you can incorporate this into the podcast, and you can, give analysis of it when you see it. But you'll understand what we have going on when I send you the pictures.
I will definitely include those pictures in some of my thumbnails and stuff going out. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
I could do this anytime, day or night. As you can tell, I could talk for a long time because I believe in everything we do.